What's up guys, welcome back to the Hyper Rocket channel. This is a revised guide on the Invaded Lands Kit PvP server for new players. It's been a little since I've made my last guide, which is by far the most popular video on my channel, but better late than never I suppose. There were a few tweaks that were made to the server. God dang it. There were a few tweaks that were made to the server over time, but instead of talking about all of them, I think it would be better to just dive in and lay out a path for new players starting on the server. Invaded Lands Kit PvP is a competitive game mode where you work to build up currency and high value items. The main ways of doing that are by killing other players, for which you'll be rewarded $10 to $30 of in-game currency, and obviously the opposing player's items. Selling items through trade or through the auction house command, winning wager duels, and other miscellaneous methods including crates, ranks, events, and leaderboards. By definition of the noob player to whom I'm catering this guide, I won't be discussing the upside of purchasing ranks and high value crates in high detail, but just know that you can pay actual money to boost yourself on the server. I also won't be covering events because the majority of players will not be able to win and they don't occur very frequently. I also won't be covering the upside of performing well on the kill leaderboard because a guide should not cater itself to the top 5 players on the server, but if you're that good at Kit PvP and you have enough time on your hands, it is worth going for that kill record. Okay, let's get started. You spawn into the server with absolutely nothing but commands. The first thing you should do is type in /achievements. I won't rattle all of these off, but they are important to keep note of. The first important one is the kills achievement. Easy money early on. This really expedites the process of getting your first good weapon, but more to come later on. Back to it, you have no money, but you have access to your basic kits, default and daily, which are your most valuable kits redeemable once a day. Elite and Archer, which have niche good items like speed potions, strong bows, and decent swords, redeemable once every 12 hours, and lastly your Kit PvP, which is the basic Iron Kit, redeemable every 30 seconds. The important things to note: you should always do your kits whenever you can and store the most important items away for later use. This includes the Protection 1 diamond armor, notch apples, swords, speed and poison potions, and bows. The bonus things like iron armor, gold armor, iron swords, stake, arrows, regular golden apples, and regeneration 1 potions are not of very high value and can be used regularly without heavy loss. What I recommend you do is to put the valuable items away in your single private vault, accessible through the /pv1 command, or in your ender chest, which is found at spawn or in player warps. The other tool that you should take advantage of whenever possible is the voting command, accessible through /vote. If you feel comfortable navigating to Invaded Lands page on a third-party site, you should definitely vote for the server, and in return, you'll get a vote crate key, which can give you items as valueless as regeneration 1 potions to as valuable as high-tier ranks. More than likely, you'll get extra in-game currency or sets of high-tier weapons and armor from getting ranked kits, which are always helpful. I recommend storing those items away for later use, or selling them to other players that are more willing to expel their tools regularly. You've stored all the necessary things and you've voted for the server. What should you do with the extra stuff, and what should we do next? The extra stuff, by construction, has little to no value, so you can choose to either run out and PvP with it, or you can simply throw it away, or sell it to another player that wants it for any reason. I would suggest PvPing your first life with that stuff. I wear the iron armor from Kit Elite and a sharpness 1 iron sword, plus regular bow and arrow, and jump down spawn to the PvP arena. What you should do is use this life to get information. Who's roaming around spawn PvP? Is it mostly singled out gray named diamond players and iron players, or is it players with colorful names ganging up on other players? Is there a strong player targeting everyone they see? Are there teams of players that go after everyone they see? All of these things are pieces of information that will dictate your next move. If it is mostly the first thing that you see, you can choose to use better stuff. In this case, I would probably use one of my Protection 1 diamond sets, the Sharpness 3 stone sword, a punch 1 bow, regular golden apples, and 1 speed potion to PvP. In this scenario, you need to pick winning fights. People give me a lot of flack about doing this, but I'll talk about that a little later in the video. What I mean by winning fights is that you should be picking fights with people who have gear that's valuable to you, but you still have a good chance of beating them in a fight. Very generally, I'm referring to gray named singled out diamond players that don't have notch apple effects. This also includes mixed diamond piece players, so for example, a full iron player with a diamond helmet. Obviously, if you're better or worse at PvP, you'll have better or worse chances of winning the fight, so play within your means. If you're better, you can dare to take more even to disadvantage fights to maximize gains. If you're worse, try to focus more on undergeared players and stack up gear more slowly, but reliably. Once you kill another player for a gain, pick up their gear, run away until you're out of combat, and teleport spawn as soon as you can. From here, you can store your gains in the ender chest or private vault and repeat this process. In this situation, you can usually follow your intuition and common sense. Once you get more gear, each individual diamond set becomes less valuable, so thus you can afford to try new things. Maybe try grinding kills one life, or attacking a stacked player with a friend. A disclaimer for this step of the guide, you're going to be doing this for a really long time, or at least until you can safely make the next step up, which I'm going to describe. Taking a few steps back here, remember how I mentioned the importance of running down spawn PvP while observing the player base down there? If there are any of the criteria I mentioned before, like stacked teams ganging up on a new player like you, what should you do here? Remember how I said use your intuition from before? That same concept applies here. A common piece of feedback I get on my Invaded Lands videos: HyperRocket, why don't you use your really good gear all the time? The reason? It doesn't make intuitive sense to go out with my really valuable items if I know I can only take losing fights. Why would I keep feeding teamed high donators all of my good loot when I can give them nothing and still profit on my end? Back to the original point, that's exactly what you should do. Minimize your losses and maximize your gains by only PvPing with valueless gear. Use your kit PvP to fight other players of similar means. Try to keep your head down when you see stacked players because there's little value in making enemies for no reason. You essentially have unlimited iron armor, so don't feel bad if you die. Just jump straight back down and you'll soon accumulate enough money from killing other iron players over time. Another suggestion is to try playing on the server at a different time when not as many stacked players are around. I haven't actually done this, but I suggest you guys to give it a try. Keep a pen and a paper or a text document on your computer nearby and record the different times that you play on the server. Try to notice a pattern of when there are a lot of stacked players and when times are a little calmer. Of course, this doesn't apply if you don't have that time flexibility, but a lot of you guys probably have more flexibility than I do, so I highly encourage you to experiment. Keep these tips in mind as we move on to the next step. You'll begin to stack up valuable gear from killing other players and money as well. You'll inevitably reach a point as well when you're out of storage between your private vault and ender chest. My suggestion? You should use the /trade command and market your repaired diamond pieces to other players. You won't get a lot, but sell them cheap, maybe for $100 to $200 per set of half-decent armor. Why should you do this? A few reasons actually, and listen up. Firstly, you'll clear your inventory space, which gives you more opportunity to pick up really great items in a pinch. Secondly, if you die, which will happen eventually, whether it be to cheaters, teamers, or high donators, you'll get nothing for your gear. And lastly, $100 to $200 is not bad at all in the grand scheme of things. The alternative to this? Use the auction house to your advantage. This was a huge update for non-donators in my opinion. Before, Invaded Lands only let default players auction off one fully repaired item at a time. In the latest update, you're now able to auction off up to 10 different items, and the best part, they don't even have to be fully repaired. The caveat with the strategy of selling diamond armor is that you can't sell pieces for prices lower than $50 per piece, so the lowest price you can sell a full diamond set would then be $200, since $50 multiplied by 4 pieces of armor is a set is $200. In this update, I would leverage this auction house buff by using it in combination with the /trade command with other takers. With this cash, what you should mainly be striving for this early on is getting your hands on a good weapon. In particular, a Sharpness 3 diamond sword, buyable through the Warp Shop command. A Sharpness 3 enchantment costs $1,200 in the shop, which you should think of as an upper bound of how much you should spend on a Sharpness 3 sword. What selling extra armor does for you is that it guarantees a Sharpness 3 sword after selling 6 to 12 sets of armor. Keep in mind that you have full control over how you sell your gear, and you also get extra money for your PvP endeavors. I think this is a really good deal, and you should always keep it in mind. While we're talking about making extra cash early on, notice that I always suggest to put away your notch apples this early in your Invaded Lands career. If you're not playing on the server very much, but you're still doing your daily kits regularly, you're going to stack up a good amount of notch apples over time. 3 per day multiplied by how many days you've been doing them. Keep in mind also that you're only going to really need 1 to 3 notch apples at any given time, so if you're sitting at more than 20 or so notch apples, I would say, you can feel free to sell them through the trader or auction house commands. I usually do this at the end of my play sessions, sell them on the auction house, let them sit through the coming days on the auction, maybe for around $800 a piece, which seems like a decent market going price, and at least early on, $800 per notch apple is well worth your energy. All in all, through a combination of the first 2 parts, we're ready to move on to the next stage of playing on the server. Maybe a few days have passed at this point and you've stacked up gear from voting, daily kits, and successful PvP engagements. You've also stacked up money in the same ways. It's now time to make a big move, that is upgrading your gear. Your weapons should be of utmost importance here. I wouldn't worry too much about why, because we can talk about damage output, DPS, and effects of notch apples all day without getting anywhere, so just trust me here. Once you accumulate at least 1200 of in-game currency, you can purchase the Sharpness 3 enchantment, which you should put on a diamond sword that you get from your daily kits. I like to put this on my Sharpness 1 Unbreaking 1 sword, so I can carry the Unbreaking 1 enchantment over, which is just free value on your sword. This should be one of your most valuable assets, and you should thus take really good care of it. For the most part, the sword should spend its time in your private vault for quite some time. You should only use the sword when the PvP conditions are optimal. I'm talking like pretty much only singled out diamond players with decent weapons and worse. If there is a reasonable chance that you can get jumped, I would advise against using the sword, because losing that sword this early on is a real heartbreaker and will require you to grind back up for a new one, which takes time, as you know. Extra refinement on this: if you lose your Sharpness 3 early on, you will feel disheartened, but it's not impossible to get back to where you were. Money should be easy enough to accumulate as you get a better feel for the strategy and the server. In those rougher times, keep going as before. Sharpness 3 stone swords up to Sharpness 2 diamond swords should totally be fine to use here. Speed potions are fine to use, but carry Prot 1, your sword, punch 1 bow, and golden apples, while still leaving out OP apples and poison potions. Now you know not to use the sword in suboptimal conditions, let's talk about what you do when the stars align just right for you. Carry 2 sets of armor, 1 for you to wear, 1 for backup. Carry your sword, fishing rod if you have one and it helps you PvP. Hopefully you'll have a punch 2 at this point, so use that if it's relevant. 1 OP apple, arrows, regular golden apples, and 1 poison potion. You can see a good example of the potential gains with the strategy with some of my older videos and some of the ones that I mentioned Sharpness 3 directly. If you follow this strategy and you're able to properly identify the correct times to use the Sharp 3, you'll be surprised by how quickly you're able to stack up gear. Okay, more likely than not, if you're at this point in the strategy, you have a pretty great feel for the server, and so this guide is not really relevant anymore, but I'll keep talking if you want to hear my next steps. With your Sharpness 3 encounters, you're bound to misread the situation at some point and lose it in some encounter. With that said, it's also likely that you've either stacked up enough assets to compensate for losing the sword, or you've actually gotten another Sharpness 3 from a PvP encounter. Either of which will allow you to stay on this path and continue PvPing with Sharpness 3s, which is a great spot to be in. After you continue on this for a while, you've likely had a series of impressive drops, perhaps a combination of notch apples, protection 2 to 4 diamond armor, strength potions, even better swords like Sharpness 4 or Sharpness 5. You'll continue to store those valuable items as you see them come in, subbing out your lesser valued gear in your private vault and under chest. What you could do now, I would highly recommend trying to cut a deal with someone who's looking for in-game money and gear in exchange for real money. See if anyone is willing to buy you a VIP rank for the assets you have on the server. I'm not exactly sure if there's a market going price for this, but I would ballpark around $200,000 in terms of currency units and in-game items. Quick note on this: scamming people for items in-game is allowed, whereas scamming someone for real money is not. I'll say that one more time. Scamming people for imaginary video game items is allowed. Scamming someone for real-life money is the rawest form of fraud, and you can get penalized by your legal system. For some of my older viewers out there, you can literally go to jail depending on the severity of the scam. Anyway, since you're on the in-game item side of the trade, make sure you have them pay for your rank first. Once the rank flows through, that's when I would give them the money and items that you agree upon. They'll be more willing to trust you if they're legit, because they should know that if you try to scam them, they'll get their money back and you'll get banned and potentially reap some of the consequences I mentioned above. The inverse of this, if you give them the items first, they can just run away from you and leave you with nothing, since again, scamming for in-game items is legal. Okay, if you've reached this point in the Noob's Guide, congratulations. You're officially not a noob, and you can really start to climb on the server. Use your additional private vaults and your VIP kit now, in combination with the strategy mentioned above, and you can keep up your farming rates from before, but you'll now be able to store more than twice as many items as you were able to as a non-donor. Rinse and repeat, keep stacking up amazing gear until you reach the point where you can trade in-game items for a rank upgrade from VIP to MVP. Same process applies inductively after MVP. Couple of notes I want to mention. One of my main criticisms my first guy received: HyperRocket. You always get so lucky when you play the game. Anyone would be able to capitalize on the Sharpness 4, Protection 4 players if they're always as bad as the people you fight against. How am I supposed to progress if my experience is completely different than yours? To the last point, your experience is bound to be different from mine on a per session basis, but on average, absolutely not. I'm playing on the exact same server as you are. I don't get any special treatment if I play on an alt account, which I do literally for all of my videos. For those that are genuinely convinced that their experience is vastly different from mine, I highly suggest you record yourself playing and VOD review. Is there any decision you could have made to perform better? Have you genuinely tried to experiment and play at different times of the day? Are you really that much better of a PvPer, or are you just irrationally confident in your abilities and your confirmation bias only allows you to see the situation with one field of reference in mind? Spoiler alert, the skill cap for Minecraft is extremely low, so you can only get so much better than me without cheats. Hopefully that helps to answer that second point. To the first point, yes, I know I'm not the best at PvP, and there are certainly times when I can get quote-unquote lucky. The reason why I say quote-unquote is because it's lucky in the sense that you have a statistically low probability of running into that lucky event on a per-session basis, but if you're playing consistently over a long period of time, the occurrence of that lucky event is almost a statistical certainty. To those with this criticism, I highly recommend you take an elementary probability or statistics course to learn about this stuff. It'll help you understand the world beyond just Minecraft, lol. But without going into theory, let me walk you through a way to think about it. Let's suppose you flip a coin and there's a 5% chance you get heads and a 95% chance you get tails. Is it likely that you'll get tails on your first flip? Heck yes, 95% chance to get tails on any given flip. What if I posed a different question? What is the chance that if I flip the coin 50 times, 100 times, 500, 1,000, a million times, then not a single one of those flips would be heads? The chance that that happens is almost impossible. The number is arbitrary, but you getting that lucky drop or series of lucky drops is that 5% example. Keep your heads up, gents. You put in the work and you'll see the results. Second of the 2 points, and this is sort of a rant, so feel free to click off the video if you don't wish to hear this. HyperRocket. Why don't you join a clan on the server? Though I love the idea of playing for a team, and I bet team fights would be a lot of fun from time to time, my impression on factions within Invaded Lands has been a terrible one. When I say terrible, I don't mean like not the best, but I'm hyperbolizing. I genuinely mean close to unmatched horror. I don't wish to generalize people that are in clans, but this message extends to a lot of you who have made a name for yourself. If you are a properly functioning human being that was raised with some sense of right and wrong, you'll be able to see exactly what I mean. The type of genuine hatred that these people can only express to each other through racial slurs, derogatory homophobic remarks, and suggestions to harm themselves is absolutely despicable and shows me that you're a coward, you lack a serious part of your own personal development, and if you continue on that path, you could very well be a detriment to society. For that reason, I have lost a lot of interest in actively trying to improve the Invaded Lands community, because it's depressing to be surrounded by a community full of people that can be so horrendously emotional. Don't get me wrong, I'm all for having a good time with your friends and being careless with your words and jokes, and thankfully there are a lot of you out there that do this in a healthy way. But when you are deliberately trying to hurt someone that has no relation to you, other than beating you in a video game, that tells me one of two things. The first applies to you if you're a little kid. You think you're an untouchable on the internet because no one knows your identity and no one can hurt you, and you do it because you know you won't be punished. Please rethink your actions and understand that you're hurting people. Your motivation as a person should never be, what can I get away with? It should be, how can I be a better person? And how can I improve myself? Next time you want to say something hurtful, think the following. How would my family react if they saw that this came out of my mouth to this random person that probably did not deserve what I'm about to tell them? The second applies to you if you're older. You don't fully understand the power that your words carry, and you're genuinely pissed off at someone on the server because they wronged you. Take a step back and realize that you're hurting people over a stupid kid's video game. If you have some self-respect, you'll laugh at yourself and realize how dumb it was to even think such a thought and move on with your life. Maybe you'll take a break from the game, if you need it, and explore some of the other beautiful reasons there are to be alive in this world. Find a significant other, master a new craft, introduce yourself to new people, and see if you click. One of my favorites, start working on your health, physically and mentally. Try a human body experiment, change your diet, and try a workout routine. Try meditating and learning to master your own mind. There are so many things that you can invest hours into that go far beyond yelling at someone to hurt themselves over a block game. Rant over. If you've reached this point in the video, I genuinely want to thank you for watching. I hope this video was helpful for those that are looking to get into the server but don't know how. Please let me know if I missed anything on this video or if there are any additional ideas you might add. I'm very open to suggestions. On that note, lots of grinding ahead if you're motivated. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.